Hey guys, and welcome to my next stream, and welcome to all of you, right? And let's quickly set the agenda of what we want to do here. But before we do that, I would like to give you one small introduction of who I am, right? In case you don't know me, and then we can start ahead and move on to the problem that we're solving today. All right, so let's get to it. Okay. So just going to share my screen and we'll just start, right? So first things first, who am I, right? I am Mustansir Zia and I'm a senior software engineer and engineering lead at Hubilo, right? So Hubilo is a virtual events platform wherein we connect uh, uh, people from different regions of the world, and we bring hybrid events to the table because since COVID, a lot of physical events, people were having a really hard time having these, and we kind of enabled them to have them virtually and to give them a platform wherein physical interaction could take place, and they would feel, like they were in a like they were in a physical event, right? So it's a virtual event platform, and I'm one of their engineering leads, right? Uh, I'm just going to reuse my previous slide from my previous live session, right? So I'm really just someone who writes a lot of code, and I'm really into writing clean code, and I'm really into converting business models into an actual working product. And you can know more about me by if you're in a Node.js ecosystem, which I assume you are, since you have joined this live stream. You could actually go right ahead to it to your terminal, and you can actually just run this command, right? And that will allow you to see my portfolio in case you want to. And there's also a small blogging website that I occasionally use to blog about certain things, although I really want to be a little more frequent in doing that. But that's something that I do nonetheless, and you can go to my site and you can check out the blog, and of course there would be other social links that might follow, right? So um, so let's actually just start, right? And okay, so I hope my stream is stable today, right? And yeah, like always, if you guys have any issues with the stream, or if you guys have any issues with my audio or my video connection, so feel free to point that out in the chat, right? And we'll try to sort it out. Okay, so let's get the session started and let's get the ball rolling. Okay, so coming back to my stream, right? So what are we actually what are we trying to build today, right? So let me show you. So we're actually gonna build a service. We're actually gonna build a service called Pokemon service, right? So what are we building? So we're building a service called Pokemon service, right? I'll just quickly give you an idea of what we are trying to do, and then we go right ahead and jump and take a deep dive. So we're building a service, right? Essentially, what this service will do is that service will be kind of exposed on a domain, let's say abc.com or let's say pokemon.com right now, just for simplicity, although I do not own pokemon.com, but let's just say for simplicity we do. And the service that we are building will actually allow us to see different pokemons based on the slug that is before our domain. So let's say we actually go to a url called pikachu.pokemon.com, so it will actually allow us to see a page of Pikachu, right? And similarly we could have some others, like other Pokemons. Not really, I don't really remember a lot of them, but I know there was one called Charmander, right? So there could be something like charmander.pokemon.com would take us to a Charmander page, right? I don't even know if that's the right spelling, but you get the idea, right? So similarly, there could be like in an ABC Pokemon, and they should allow us to open the page of like say ABC Pokemon, right? So this is what we are trying to build, right? And the way we would want to build this is we would want to build this in Node.js using TypeScript, and we would actually be using a framework called Nest.js. Okay, so Nest.js is a framework that's built on top of Express or Fastify. You can use either of those two. It's basically an abstraction over, you know either Express or Fastify, depending upon what you want to choose, right? So it's more of a higher level framework than Express. It's not bare bones framework like Express. It's more, you could say it's more opinionated, and it has a lot of goodies in the bag already, right? Which Express doesn't have. So it's more of a ready-made framework, which you can actually start with it rather quickly, and you will probably hit the ground running a lot faster than you would probably do with Express. Although this actually does come with some level of, you do lose a bit of flexibility along the process, because once you have a bare bones framework like probably like Express or Happy, right, you do get a lot of flexibility along the way because it's a more unopinionated framework. It's a more bare bones framework. So Next.js a lot more, it's a lot more opinionated, and but the thing is that that also has an advantage that you'll automatically be kind of inclined towards better practices, because you won't have to care for them as much as you have to do if you use, say, an Express or Happy, right? So that's where I really like Nest.js. So you can kind of hit the ground running, and the concepts of Nest.js are kind of similar to, like, what I also feel should be there in an enterprise application. So that's why I've chosen Nest.js to be the framework of choice for this stream. Apart from this, we'll also be using TypeScript. So we want to have a strictly type system. Like I probably say this a million times to a million people, that you really want to have TypeScript over JavaScript, because it gives you a lot more security in terms of compile time errors, and it helps you eliminate a lot of bugs right in your editor. Rather than your client seeing them on the browser, or while using our application. So it's much better feedback in terms of bugs. So let's get started, right? And first up, let me just show you the site. Let me just show you the documentation of Nest.js, right? And we can get started right away. Okay, so okay, so here is Nest.js. It's a very opinionated framework, a lot more opinionated than Express, right? And let me just show you the homepage just to get you an idea. Okay, so and to get started, let's just actually see how to set up a boilerplate, right? Let's just go to first steps, and yeah, for sure it has a CLI, like a lot of frameworks have a CLI, like Adonis has a CLI, right? Create React App has a CLI, Next.js has a CLI. So Next.js also has a CLI that kind of generates a boilerplate for you, and these are the two commands that we would need to write, and it will kind of generate a boilerplate for us. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna skip command number one. We're just gonna combine into one command, and we can just start. So I'll just go quickly to my workspace folder, and let me write these commands. All right. Instead of writing these two, I just combine them. So I'll just write npx nest CLI, right? This would actually just use the next CLI binary, and I would do a new project. Let's say Pokemon service, right? So this is the command that will allow us to actually generate a new boilerplate, a Nest.js boilerplate. And by default, it uses TypeScript, but you have to, if you want to use JavaScript, you have to explicitly opt out for it. Um, okay, so all right. So since in the meantime, while this is happening, let me just take you to the website, the documentation Nest.js. It's clean, right? The best thing about Nest.js is that it is just you can actually use it for not just for REST APIs, but for WebSocket APIs as well as microservices. And if even you have a GraphQL API, you can still use it on top of Next.js, which is kind of nice, right? Although this is an area that I also have to experiment in, but this is something that you can definitely do with Nest.js. And there are a lot of other things that come like alongside Nest.js. So I think you have Swag documentation also that you can get pretty easily if you're using REST APIs. There is a lot of things, a lot of use cases already kind of incorporated in the frameworks. You don't have to, have to look at third-party things. You don't have to actually search for them, look for them. So you can get in-house solutions for a lot of things like caching, cookies, queues, task scheduling. Like all these are pretty valid use cases for our enterprise or business application. So all those are kind of baked into the project and can be kind of used like very easily, right? Okay, so which package manager we want to use? So we'll gonna go with Yarn here. Not going for npm. So okay, so let us actually wait for this to happen, and I'm just showing you Nest.js in a nutshell, right? And there are lots of features of Nest.js that we will not be able to go into because it's a small session, right? But we will try to touch the all the basics, and we will, after the live session, the point is to The point is for you guys to actually feel confident about it and to not, let's say, shy away if you want to use it in your projects, right? And this will give you a lot of head when if you want to use. Okay, so all right, so it's like, so one of our installations has actually failed, right? But what we can actually do is we can go directly to the folder that is created and we're just going to install all the dependencies and see. So there's probably an issue with installation of our dependencies. Let's just do this manually for now, right? And let's see. So I just want to check my node version if I'm on the latest. So this is probably it. So I'm not probably on the latest node version. So this is probably why the command actually failed. So let me just quickly switch my node versions. So I'm on 14 now. And let me just do a yarn again. And this should be good. I think that was the issue. I forgot to upgrade my node. Okay. So while this is happening, let's just uh, let's just try to see how Nest.js is working, right? So if you go to the documentation, basically this is our bones boilerplate. It only have these set of files, right? Once we just start with it, and there will be some boilerplate, and of course you can use Fastify or Express, uh, depending upon your taste and experience, right? And so Nest.js actually works, just to get you a heads up. But let's see. Okay, this is done, right? So let me just open this in my right? And so here is, you can see, so here is a boilerplate, a Nest.js boilerplate. So it has pretty standard things, right? As a source folder that you would expect, and it also has just bunch of like files that you would expect to see, right? You have a tsconfig file, like, of course using TypeScript. You would also have ESLint pre-configured with some sensible defaults, although I would want to override this very soon. Then of course you obviously have a prettier config as well. Probably want to override that as well. Then if you look at the package.json file, so one thing that I really like about Nest is that it has like, so all the commands, all the scripts that you would probably need in the app are already baked in right from the start. So it has even different scripts for having a different. So it has different scripts for testing even, right? So it is just not just one test script, but rather there are actually, I think there are 5 of them, right? So you could actually have one dedicated for coverage and one for just debugging, and you could have a watch mode separately. So all these things are really great, right? And these are all the dependencies that we have. So primarily just Nest.js. We have reflect metadata that we will use. I will actually briefly touch as to why we use reflect metadata. Then we have rimraf rxjs. So rxjs is actually pretty important because I think Nest.js relies on observables. A lot of internal things are happening based on observables. That's why they need rxjs, and rimraf would be probably for just for cleanup or things like that. uh, Okay, so let's actually just, I'll just want to explain to you one brief concept before we move forward, right? So I just explain to you by means of a diagram, right? This is probably a last diagram if you remember. So I'm just gonna make a new. Okay, hang on. Okay, so just gonna make a blank diagram, right? So we have, so basically in Next.js we have a concept of modules, right? So we have one big module called app module, and basically a module is, you could say a module is, it's basically, you could say it's a set of components that pertain to a certain specific use case, right? So globally our app only has one app module, right? This is basically the basic module that will house all the other modules. And similarly we can have, so we can have like a user module, right? Similarly we can have, uh, let's say we'll have something called a pets module, right? So then we can have some other modules. We can even have a called, we can have something like a common module as well. So this is something that actually could be shared between these two modules. So let's say we have a module that's actually shared. So what I actually mean by module in more specific terms is, this is basically a module. You can think of a module as a piece in your codes which houses your endpoints as well as the business logic related to actually handle all the that is happening inside your points or your application, right? So let's say user module house, let's say it will house, let's say a user's endpoint. So it might, let's say, house a get user endpoints. Similarly it might house some other modules, right, for users, specifically for users, right? So similarly for pets, it can have endpoints related to pets, right? So we could have something like pets. And when I say a module, I mean, don't really confuse it with a controller. Rather, this is it has, you probably familiar with a term called controller, which usually houses our endpoint. So a module doesn't just house our endpoint, but it also houses the business logic that is needed in those endpoints. So think of it as one complete functionality, one complete module, right, which has, let's say, it would have your view models, it could have all your services, it could have your middlewares. So uh, this actually, I just want to, let's say, increase the size. So a module can have, right? A module can have, it can have a controller, be one or many, right? And similarly, it can have your services, it can have your middlewares. Now, the idea behind a module, why would we would want to have a specific module for this, is that you would, because these things are very isolated, and this gives a lot of isolation, and this is a lot of freedom to individual contributors in your application. So if I'm an individual contributor, I need to worry about my users module, so I can worry about my user module and not care about what's happening in this module. So it kind of gives a sense of isolation, and it helps to kind of isolate your code base, right? And we can even have a common module that these models can actually use. So we can even have common module, right, which these applications can actually so use, and these applications will be used by the app module. This diagram seems to be pretty crappy, but I think get the point, right? So I mean, of course, uh, so we will have something called a common module, and then from here we can go, we can do a lot of things, right? This is probably the app module, right? So yeah. So okay, nonetheless, you get the idea, right? So let's get started. So for our application, what we will do is, let me just go back to application, and here it is. So for this application, let me do a couple of quick points before we get into the meat of it. So there you can see this is the module. Just a passing reference. This is actually very similar to how AngularJS works. If you ever use AngularJS, you would immediately recognize this pattern. So there is a module example of module. This is our app module. It has controllers which house our endpoints. It could have providers. These are just, helper classes or services or anything else for that matter. And if you want to import another module, we can do that via the import section. So right now we will not use the app module. What we will do is we'll actually make a module Pokemons. So we'll use Pokemon module like this, right? And what we will do is we will just create some files here, module.ts, and we'll just create a few files. We will create a service, a module, and we will also need to have a controller, Pokemon controller service module. Yeah, that should be fine for now. Let's see. Okay, so just to make this simple, I'm just gonna copy paste this here, right? And I'm just gonna do, I'm just gonna write Pokemon module, right? I don't need these, right? Of course. And let's see, for the service, let's just paste this here, and we have the Pokemon service. And how we can use this service, we need to explicitly import it inside the module so controllers can use. So basically, if it's available throughout the module, right? So we have to import it here. So let's import Pokemon service. Sorry about that. Okay. Similarly, we would have a controller. I'm just gonna copy paste this here, and we will have our bare bones controller. We would have a Pokemon controller. So app service we don't have. We have is Pokemon service like this, right? Okay. So now what we can do is we can import this. There you go. So this is good. We don't need the controller. We don't need the app service. We can delete these. We don't need it. This is basically a boilerplate for test cases, right? Just delete this for now, simplicity. And for modules, what we will do is we will actually just import our Pokemon module, and we should be good to go, I think. Okay, there you go. Now this is good, right? Now after doing this, I just want to do one more thing. I just want to copy. I just want to basically have a certain. I want to have some better defaults in terms of ESLint and pretty. So I have good code formatting. Let me just copy paste from my project that I was practicing this on. Let me just paste it, and my prettier RC also, right? So let me paste it. Okay, this is good, and I just need to add a couple of dependencies, I think, just to get my formatting to work. So I would need to add prettier, obviously there. I just need to add these two things. No, put these there as well. So I think we should be to go. Let me just do one quick try. Let's see. So I have my ESLint extension working, right? Yes. Hmm. All right. So I just want to get this running. I want to just make my formatting. I want to do basically. I want to do is I want to do auto save. I want to make my files do auto save, and I want to do that on the fly. So I just want to create some sense of conversation for my editor so that we could do that. All right. So okay. So it's gonna touch this file, and that's gonna say settings.json. Right. So let me just copy the one that I have here. There you go. This is good. And let us see if this is even working. Okay, this is good. Let us just so okay, I think this is working. Right? Yes. So we have, yeah, so it is actually working. We have the prettier plugin, and yeah, this is looking good, right? So this is our formatting. Now this is our command module, and the way to start our application would be to do yarn start dev. So this would basically start our dev server, and this would use Nest.js CLI under hood. So let's okay, so now we are good. Let's see if our application is run. Let's see, we have the hello application here, localhost 3000, and yes, for sure we have the application, right? Okay. Hi. Okay, I'm just gonna turn on my camera. I forgot to turn it back on. Okay, so hope you're having fun. Okay, so now let me just close my terminal, and I'll just put this on the side. Okay, so this is working good, right? So next up, next up, let us see what's going on, right? So we have a service. One important thing to note is that we never really instantialize any of these service or controller. That's actually taken care of under the hood by Nest.js. So internally uses a dependency injection system, and it actually just it initializes all the data needed by my services by looking at the class. So it already knows how to instantiate and how to get hold of this because I kind of declared it in the module. Okay, so good. Okay, so this is my Poman service, right? So let's actually just pause for a minute and see how we want to do this. Okay, going back, what we want something like this, right? We want something like this to happen. Uh, but for this to happen, we need to actually capture the parts, right? We need to capture the part of this domain. So what we actually do is let's just try to do that in the controller first, and then we can move the logic to a service, or maybe somewhere else, or maybe middleware or something. Uh, um, let's see. So we actually use a request. Uh, okay. So let's just write request. I need to import this from Express probably. Okay. Okay. So this is my request. Let's see. So I got something. I think I have. So what I can do is let me just log this. It's probably URL. Right. So let's just log this for now. Okay. So let's just log this now, and let's see if you're getting the local host part, and we will also talk with the subdomain next. Okay, this is good. It does hot load, and let us see. So we go here. So okay, we have just this part. We would actually need to have all of the URL. So I think uh, okay, so URL is here, right? So I think it's origin, if I'm not wrong. But let me just check what the item is. Let me go back to this. Let me see. Okay, nice. Okay, okay. All right, got it. So I just forgot this. So it's actually headers.host. So I'm doing headers, and then this is basically a map, right? Let's see this. Okay. Well, ideally this should work, right? It does. Okay. Uh, hmm, 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 hmm. Okay. Yeah, this is good, right? So we have Express, but I need to see, like, is it really the request that it is? Let me just do a console log and see the object here, and we would get to know how we can access the all the header, right? So let's check. Okay, raw headers is here, so we don't need that. Okay, so headers.host definitely exists, right? So it's right here. It definitely was the correct one. So I'm not sure why TypeScript is complaining, right? We would get shortly to that, but let's just see. I know this is working, right? And I can uh, safely typecast for now, just to check. So yes, so we have actually gotten hold of the domain that we wanted to access, and we from this domain we can get hold of the subdomain, right? But in order to do that, we're actually going to use another entity for this. We're not actually going to use this. We're not going to do this inside the controller itself. We're actually going to do it in an entity called guard, right? So if we go to Nest.js documentation, we have something called guards, right? And a guard is something basically which, as the diagram suggesting, right? So it kind of intercepts your client side request and it checks certain parameters. It's a very good use case authentication, right? And this is to, if you think of it, we also want our subdomain parsing to be in a guard, because let's say we have a malformed URL. Let's say we have a subdomain on the URL, or there's some other issue, right? And for that, and that is we want to send an error that, hey, the URL is probably not correct or something is wrong, right? So it is a kind of authentication, right? Wherein we're kind of doing a server side, we're kind of doing a validation based on subdomain. So let's actually to move that logic here, right? So think of a guard as something that kind of restricts your request. If I go to my diagram, right? So if this is a request, right? If this is a request, and let's say that this is our server, right? Sorry, this is the client, and let's say the client is making a request, right, to the server, and the server is also kind of returning the favor, right, by doing this, right? And guard would basically, okay, let me just make another diagram. Okay, okay. So a guard would probably sit somewhere in the middle, right? So this would be a guard, and this would kind of ensure that the requests don't reach your server if they are malformed or something. So this is it's a really good candidate for our business logic as well. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add a guard, right? Um, okay. So we're just gonna add a guard and do all that logic there. So I'm just gonna Pokemon dot guard dot ts, like that. Okay. So I'm just gonna give some boilerplate from the Nest.js documentation, right? So here's our guard. Okay. So this is our guard, right? This is what it looks like. Sorry about that. Okay. So it is basically, we call it as Pokemon. Sorry about that. Okay. So now, so now, what we want to do is we want to validate we want to do all the validation ideally here, right? Ideally we want to do it here, right? So let's do that logic that we had here, right? And now we probably get what we want, headers. Wait, okay, okay. So get request is by default any. So I would want to have some form of types. So we're just gonna do the same thing here. Okay, so we're just gonna do a request, right? And the request has everything that I need there, right? So something like this, right? Now, yeah, sorry. Okay, so this is an express request, and there you go. Sorry about that. Okay, now we would probably have the typing. Yes, so now we have it. I don't know why we didn't have it here. It's pretty, like, I don't know why we even didn't have it, but probably. But anyway, all right. So this is good, right? So we have the host, and let's just one thing. let's just let's try to see this is working, right? And next, get next. So it's gonna forward a request, and that is good. It's not express request. All right. So how we can actually use it? How can we use the guard? Is we want to have, okay. So this is the structure. So we'll actually use it the way we use it. We annotate our controller with this use guards, right? Just going to import this, and this will be our Pokemon guard. Okay. So now let's just do the service as is. We don't want this now, right? We're gonna kind of offer all that logic inside the guard itself. Here is our guard, right? Let's just do something here. So let's see. Let's actually just say that it has host is equal to request. So we should just do a little logic here. Okay. Let me take out the host, right? And we can actually take out the host, and let's just write a, let's just split it, right? In terms of the period, right? So we would have something we would have something like of array of probably length 3 if this is correct, right? So what we are going to do this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to see if the length. I'm just going to do a very. I'm going to do this very simple, right? I don't want to have complicated logic to start with. So I'm just going to do a length. If it is length is less than 3, so what we can do is we can just throw. There's something that I really like about Next.js is that it has kind of decent error handling built by default. So we would just do a non we do a bad request exception. We would say invalid or missing subdomain. Subdomain. Okay, so let's check this. So let's check this out. Okay, so let's see if this is even working. But this actually shouldn't work, and correctly so, because we don't have a subdomain, right? We just have one big URL. We don't have a .com. So this is perfectly fine. You'll get a 400 and get this. Now, how to do this in localhost, because we don't really have an access to a subdomain in localhost. So to do that hack, we're actually going to use a tool called ngrok. This one, right? And let's start. Okay, so let's actually just build a tunnel from our local host, and we can expose our local host to the outside world. Let's try this out. So once we have hit this, and okay, let's see. So getting a 404. Okay, so we are getting something here. So the is actually being sent correctly, but there is something that's happening, right? I think I know. I forgot the return statement here, so that would kind of not allow it to go for further, and this is what is happening. Okay, let's see. Cannot set head after they are sent. Ideally, well, this should be good, right? Why are we even setting headers? Let's see. Okay, let's see. Mm, where is this even coming from, right? Okay, this is nice. Okay, this is good. All right, let's see localhost. Okay, so we have this running, and it goes to our controller, right? And our controller just returns something. So ideally, this is like a pretty standard flow. We are not setting headers after sending out the response. So not sure what's going on. Mm, let's try again. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. So what could be happening? Does anyone have any clue? Does anyone want to recommend some of why we are having header send error? Okay, let's check this. Right? Maybe there's something that I missed. Hmm. Okay. Okay. So it definitely reaches our controller. That is for sure. And I don't have anything here so that it can send back a response. I just have my one guard, and that is it. Okay, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's let's just do a console log and see if we here. All right. So we don't have the console log anywhere, which is kind of weird. I'm just gonna name this because I do anyway. And let's see. Mm, so surely this will probably not. Anyway, let's just do a textbook way of checking debugging. It's console logging, right? Just add a debug statement here. Okay, so we have the debug statement. It is actually going here, but somehow something is actually not working properly. Something's up, right? Something's definitely up. So it's getting to control, but something is happening, right? And we don't see a console log here. Something is happening here, not as we expect. So let me just uh, check my guard here. Okay, so I think how it works is that you have to return a true, and this probably something that is very specific to next Nest.js that it expects a boolean return type. So I'm not sure why it actually wasn't how it could not complain because of the any, right? Okay, fine. So okay, so this should be, I think. So basically, we had to return a boolean to signify Nest.js that we are good. We can move to the other endpoint. So yeah, for sure, this is working. And then even we can even console this and check whether we have the subdomain properly or not. So we were like a split two or something, right? Let's see. Probably not a split two, but split zero. Let's see. And yes, we have the subdomain. So exactly what we did, right? Let's just do one thing. I still don't like the where we have all this logic. Ideally, this is business logic, right? So I really want to have it in a proper service if I can, right? And let me see if I can do that. Mm, let me actually see if I can do that. So let me create another service just for have to have this functionality. And there is one reason why I want to have another service for this. So what I'm gonna write, I'm just gonna write. I'm gonna make a slug service, right? So I'll have my slug service here, and let me just add an interface. I'll tell you why I want to add an interface also. But for now, it's just important to know that. Hmm. By doing this, validate and get slug, and by default it will have express request. It will take an express request, right? Okay, okay, this one, right? And it should kind of return string or an. So if it finds a slug, it can return it can return that subdomain, right? It can return null if it's not found, right? Okay, so sorry about that. Is an interface, and let's just have this to implement this interface. I'll tell you why we want to have an interface, but that come later, right? For now, just follow along, right? So here's my method of validate and get slug. So this is it just takes a request, and by default it should just return me a slug, right? So let's just copy paste what we had here. Mm, so we had the request. Don't want that. We just want a, and by default it should return null if we don't have a subdomain, and it can return the subdomain, right? So this is it can be a request. Okay, so this is good. And to use the service, I would obviously need to register it here like this, and in guard we can actually use it in the constructor. This is something that I again really like. So we have access to Slack service. Okay, and Sorry about that. Yeah. So slug service is here. So what we're gonna do is we'll actually say slug is equal to, we're gonna say dot slug service, and it takes a request, and it became, what you have to do is, this is some Nest.js boilerplate, right? So we have to switch to HTTP get request, and this is express request. Okay, dot validate and get slug. Uh, Maybe I'll just call it get slug. It's not doing any validation. Just one method for now. Get slug. And if I don't have that slug, I can always say what you've just. I'm just going to return. I'm just gonna do a. I'm just gonna do a next context start switch to HTTP get next, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make it in a variable so it's a little more readable. Okay, then bad request exception. I'm just gonna say invalid request missing slug. All right, and we're gonna return all so that we don't go to the next statement, and this is good. Let's check this. Okay, for local host it should fail, it is failing, and for this it should return a hello world which is returning. So we're looking good, except we still have this headers except I still don't know where it's coming from actually. Not, I don't still don't know where it's coming from, right? So maybe the thing is that the repeated calls to switch HTTP might actually be responsible for this, but let's see. Hmm. So maybe we can even throw this. We don't even need to use Nest. We can really throw a Nest.js might be able to cover up for us. Let's try that out. Let's try that out. Yes, it is working. So we can directly throw an exception. Also, doesn't need, you don't need to have the conventional next callback pattern that we have in access. So this is good, and the error for headers is also gone. The reason that I think is that we actually repeatedly calling switch to HTTP, and I know this could actually trigger some headers where it was doing something that we really wanted to do. So it was accidentally sending some headers whenever we would want to switch to HTTP. So this is why that was happening. So we just do this one time, and we can actually just make this to go inside another variable, so it's a little more readable, right? So we do a request like this, right? And then we can do we can just copy paste it here. This is good, right? So right now we're looking good with the authentication in place. Now there is one that I would really want to do. I want to have a fallback system wherein I want to have a subdomain in place, but I also want to call back to a query parameter. Let's say I just have this baked in, so I want to also fall to a query parameter if I don't have a subdomain. So if I have a query parameter of Pokemon, I want to have this accepted as a valid input. So it's ideally going to be a subdomain like this, right? Or it's going to be a query parameter like this. So either way, we accept this as a valid parameter and move forward. And this is the reasons why I actually made this into a server, that we could have another implementation of it. And let's do that, okay? Which it sounds like a good plan. So how we do this is, let's just export it, and let's actually make another class, and we will call this subdomain service. And similarly, we can have another one. We will have query param slug service, right? So our module we need to make changes. And so we have query parameter slug service and we have subdomain slug service. So we have two of these. Now which one we will use? That's a good question. So in the guard we'll have to use either of the two. So the two approaches that we can take here, right? Okay. So just want to catch a breather before we go a little forward, right? And then we can resume. Okay, guys, we're back. Let's resume what we were doing. All right. So let's go back. So there are, so like I was telling you, so we would want some form of fallback in case we don't have the subdomain, because sometimes due to some availability or test purposes, we would want basically our subdomain. We wouldn't have access to an environment which would allow submaining, right? Then we want to fall back to a parameter, but we want our application to work nonetheless. So that is why I wanted to create two slug services. One would be the subdomain slug service, and the other would be a query parameter slug service. So the query parameter would also be very simple. It would have a query, and then it would have a Pokemon like this, right? And what we can do is we will do is just return the Pokemon, right? And let's see if it's allowing me to turn it. It's probably end, because yeah, it is not exactly. So let us do one thing. Let us just do query. Okay, past. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not getting any intelligence here. I wanted to have some intelligence, but let's see. Okay, queries here. Uh, this is actually an object. I know that, right? I can. What I need to do is I need to do if. Mm, so let me just try it out this way. So if if I don't have a Pokemon, right? If I have it, so I'm just gonna return a null. Otherwise, I'm just gonna return a Pokemon, query Pokemon, and let's see why. Hmm. Okay, there is something that I remember I did. I don't know what it was. Let me just look my experiment that I was doing before. I have it somewhere. I know. I have it somewhere. I know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is good, and this is my query param service and subdomain service. Now, if I want to use them, so I have two approaches to this. I can import this here. Like, so let's say I have slug service. I can have a subdomain service, and I can have a query parameter slug service. So I can have two of these, right? And then I can do like an or something, right? I can do an or, but that kind of approach is not so scalable. So we will go with some other approach, and which is a lot more scalable. And then we can, you say in the future, we decide to add another source of slugs. Let's say the headers, or let's say we want to do this somewhere else. So in that case, this approach is a lot scalable, and it will be kind of favorable when it comes to that. Otherwise, we'll do a lot of copy pasting, changing a lot of things. So how we want to do this is, let's go back to our slug service. So what I'll just create one more class. I'll just create one more class, and we will call it combined slug service. Okay. It's the same. It's a similar structure, but this time around it will actually have two. It will have a very important distinguish. It has a very distinguishing factor than the other service. So it will actually be combined of one or more services, slug service. So by default, we take an array of service, right? And we can have like this. So we can have something like this. Sorry. Okay. Something like this, and we could have this private. So this is good. We can even have it as a maybe rest parameter. Wait, structures don't allow this, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Of course it doesn't. So let's just, okay. So now what we will do is we will iterate on each of these. So let's say service of services, and what we want to do is we want to slug. We want to take the slot from this service to service get slug, and we want to pass in the request. If we have a slug, if we get a slug, we'll return it. Otherwise, if we didn't find a slug, we're just going to return. And this is great. So we have the combined slug service, and we have these two, and have these. So how we will use it is, let's go back to our module, and we would want to use this combined slug service. Now there's a problem in combined slug service. So ideally our dependency injection system would take care of initializing, but in this slug service case, it doesn't know how to initialize it, because we have a construct parameter, it doesn't know what pass in here. So to do that explicit, and there is a syntax for it. So how we can actually instantiate it as a custom implementation. To do that, just copy paste some code, and I'll show you what it means. So we'll just use something called what we call factory pattern. So let's just actually copy paste some code and I'll let you know what it is. So query parameter slug service, and then we have subdomain slug service. All right. So this is basically just telling Nest.js that if you encounter a class of this type, so you have to instantiate it like this. So you will just provide these two arguments and you will return the instance. This is what this is basically what we call the factory pattern. So we are kind of handling the instantiation for Nest.js. So it doesn't. So let's say Pokemon service was easier. It doesn't have any parameters. So whenever it encounters a Pokemon service, it does it internally does this because it knows that there is an empty no arg construct. So in case of a combined service, it doesn't have that information. It doesn't know which service to use. So we can use this. So we can even remove injectables because we are not injecting using the DI. So we can remove the injections. We can keep that on combined service, I think. But anyway, let's just check. So we go to guard, and what we will do is just use the combined service here. And this is just brilliant. So it is actually just a brilliant piece of abstraction that we have. It doesn't need to know which service underneath it use, and we can safely say that we can actually safely say that it will first use the query parameter slug service. Yes. So if it has a query parameter, it take that. If not, if it has a subdomain, it will take a subdomain. So either of the two, it will check. So let's check now. So let's go localhost. We will have a missing slug here because it's not really taking this. So let's see what's wrong. Our query parameter slug service should work. We don't have that. So let's see. And yes, so query parameter is working. There's no query parameter. We'll just use a subdomain, and yes, the slug working. So this is good, right? So we have the guard here, and this is really good, and we have slug in place. Now, okay, so I want to take back to Twitch. Okay, so this is good. So this is our guard in place. So now what we want to do is we want to actually use the slug here. So this Pokemon service actually we would have now let's build out the service, right? So we would have Pokemon, we would have a slug, right? And it will be a string, and it will return an object probably. So we would not return a Pokemon, right? We would not return a Pokemon by using this slug. You don't want to return hello world, right? You want to return slug here. So you want to return that. So what we will do is first let's actually just tie this up a bit, and let's for now return a string, and let's return the slug that we are getting just for simplicity's sake, right? And this would need an argument of slug. So we don't have that at the moment. And how we can get that is we can actually have the guard to do so now we will actually use a certain thing called a request context. So we already have access to the request. What we can do is we can set some context, and what we can do right now is we can the rest is just a plain old JavaScript object. So we can add some properties to it, and this is the approach we'll take. So we'll add a slug to our request object. So we're kind of inping the slug into a request. So going back to my diagram, so a guard so apart from guarding the request, it all makes sure that the server actually gets the slug that it has processed. We don't want to do processing at two places. We did it at the guard. We don't want to do it at the controller level also. So that is why we will not do it here also and assume that we will get it always because the guard has passed it. But rather, what we'll do is just add it to the rest, and then we can use same in the controller. So now you can see the TypeScript is actually complaining there is no slug on the request. The reason is that by default, Express doesn't have this property in the request, the request object, and we have to explicitly say that it does. To do that, we'll just create a type folder, and we'll just create index.t.ts like this. This is just a type cell, and we will actually kind of extend, and we would just so the syntax is this. I'll just tell you the syntax. So basically, we are modifying the Express namespace, and we are actually changing the request object that's in Express, and we are adding a slug type property. So this is what the syntax means. And if we go to our guard, and now you see actually the slug has appeared magically because we have explicitly told Express that we will have a slug in our request. So this is what it means by this. Right? And now you can see this is actually working. And this can be either another a string. So let's go back to our implementation. So for our controller, we would need to have the request tag. let's get back our request like this, and we would have a request, and this would be an express request. Let's just copy paste the request from here, right? Here you go. As express request, we can do, this is the type, sorry that, here is a type, and we can do request.slug. And there you go. This is perfect. Now let's see it in action, and we go charmander and we get charmander. Similarly for this will be subdomain of engine, and there you have it. So perfect. So this is only perfect. Now final piece of the puzzle. Let's actually get the Pokemon. So how are we gonna do that? So like, what we're gonna do is actually gonna rely on an API called Poke API. This is a third, it's just a free API that we can use to get details of a Pokemon, and we can search by name. And the API that we're gonna use. So this is the API, and we can actually search. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's search. Let's see. So we have Pikachu. Let's admit, and there you have Pikachu. I think. Okay, resource found. Uh, okay, let's see. Okay, let's use this API in a way that we want. Okay, so it actually uses an ID. Okay, probably yes, like this. So this is how we want to use the API. Okay. So this is actually gives us information about the Pokemon, right? So we have Pikachu. Similarly, we can have Charmander. Let's actually verify if our spelling was correct. And no, it's probably not. So Charmander is probably with an E, and yes, Charmander is. So here is our Charmander. So really what we are concerned about right now, we just have. So we don't want all of this object. It has power, superpowers, and all those things. So we don't really want it. What we really want is, what we really care about is probably just the name of the Pokemon, right? And probably its profile picture, its avatar, if we find that somewhere. Uh, I'm sure it was here. Let's go back and let's see. We have sprites. Sprites. No, we don't want something bigger than sprites. Okay. Moves is here. Stats is here. Moves. No, no moves. Game indices. No, probably not. Let's see. I did have an avatar somewhere. Don't know what it is. Stats are fine. Types are fine. So I'm sure there was an avatar URL somewhere that I can't find. Forms, no. Species is fine. Sprites, let's see. Front shiny, front. Yeah, this will be one thing that we can use. Let's see. Let's see the front default, and let's see what Charmander look like. Use that in our application. No, this is a very small image. It's a big image. I'm sure there is a big image. I'm pretty sure there's a big image. Okay, official artwork, Dream World, official artwork. This could be one. I think this is the one. So front default is the one. This is the one. Yes. So this is a bigger image. Let's use this. All right. So we're gonna take the name and front default. So let's do that. So as you can see, we need to have another. So for a Pokemon service, you would want to make a REST API. We want to make a REST request. So we're gonna add a library called API source, and let's just add it. There we have it. Import client from API source, and just gonna use it. Okay, so API client, and let's see. I think it has a base URL that we can use. Okay, base URL. Mm, keep forgetting what this though. Okay, this is probably not what we want. Uh, okay, just check the docs. Let's just check docs. Create. Right. Okay, so create, and then you have base URL. So the base URL would obviously be this one. So this would be our base URL. All of this, right? And of course, including the Pokemon part. So this will be our base URL. We're using a GET request. So let's see. So where we have data, we have okay, and we have and we have something called an original error, I think, or we just have error for now. Then we have get, and the URL will be slug, right? And we'll just actually, now what I've noticed, we need to have this as a we not have this as a promise, right? And this could be an name class. in method, and we could do an await, and we have error doesn't exist on this. That's fine. If it is not okay, then we can throw, okay, what we have, we can throw data dot error, probably. I'm not sure. I need to check what it has, right? Okay, okay, what did it have, right? Problem. Okay, problem. One of the different values, data. Okay, okay. Hmm. So we would use original error. Original error is here. Okay, so if it is not okay, we can throw uh, error, and we can say, or we can even throw original error, because type of an error, so it should be able, it should be okay. Okay, so data. So what is data, right? We'll completely type it out as to what is data. So let's map out. So the first thing, name, right? So we are expecting a name property of string, and what else are we expecting? So go down. We are expecting other home and front default. So we're expecting other home default, and we're expecting home default. We are expecting, okay, it's actually just home. Uh, then we have a home default, and then we have a string. We have front default. Okay, we have something called as a front default. Okay, so what do we want to return? That's a good question, right? We want something. So we want to return an object that has the name and the avatar. So let's create that object. Let's create that object, right? Okay, right. Pokemon detail. Let's create the object that will return. So it will have a name, Pokemon, and it will probably have an avatar URL as well, right? Let's export this, and this is what we are going to return from our service. Okay, and let's return name. We could actually do our name, and then actually is data. Sorry, data dot name, and then for avatar URL, we could have data dot other dot home dot front default. Okay, so let's see why this is not working. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so this is good. In the controller, we would want to await this. I'm gonna await. Well, actually, it's not working because we need to have a Pokemon. It returns a Pokemon TO, right? And we can even do it like this, wherein we say that it runs a prompt, and then we don't need an ink, so return it directly like this, right? Let's do an npm start, and let's see. Start dev. Oh, yeah, start dev. All right, let's see. So we're gonna refresh the page, and we have an internal server error because it didn't have any home property. Okay, so we did miss something. So our data mapping is probably not it. So data dot other dot home is not there. So other, we haven't mapped out correctly. So it's other home. Other home is there, right? Other is there. Home is there. So other should be there. Yeah, like I don't know why we don't have it. Let's just console log data, see what we have. Mm, okay. Okay, let's see. So we have sprites is here, moves here, abilities. It doesn't have. Okay, where is that? I was actually looking for that. It doesn't have other here. Okay, why? Okay, let's just. Hmm. Okay, it does have an other, but it probably falls under something. Okay, it falls under sprites. Okay, interesting. So it falls under sprites, and what we have to do is like this. This is good. Let's try this out. Let's see. And yes, we have the Pokemon name and the avatar, which is perfect. So we have this. And if we go to the subdomain, this should actually throw an error because the subdomain is not a valid name of a Pokemon, and it should throw out an error. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, failed with. Okay, so we need to wrap the error for it to handle it properly. We need to have server exception. Okay. exception, HTTP exception from Nest.js, and by default it takes a response and a status. So original error could be the response, and the status could be the status that we got here. There you go. Let's see. And this is good, right? Okay, so this is a 404 from Agios, and this is perfect, right? So we could even do a toast here if you want to, but for now this is fine, and this is how we could actually return a Pokemon. Now let's see, and let's see this in action. Okay, so this is our Pokemon. The guard's working perfectly, right? And the services are good as well. We probably don't need to have, okay, so slug service is working perfectly fine, right? And this is our request. Charmander is there, so let's see Pikachu. Let's see, and let's actually just not have query parameter. Yes, invalid request, missing slug. That's good. Okay, so now next up, just want to have one static HTML page that we can use for this. So I actually made one, uh, but it's to do that. So Nest.js provides a very neat utility called views. So to do that, we will actually use we'll actually render HTML template and see this. All right, so just template rendering. If you go here, and we will see how to render a static HTML template. It's a very simple thing, right? We to probably add templating engine. So right now we just add handlebars, right? And we're just gonna add HBS. Just need to have some boilerplate from HBS here with our bootstrap function, so that we can use it. Here you go. There it is. And app is the next application. Select this. Type it out. It's imported. Sorry about that. Okay, here it is. Just let me just copy paste it, and we have this. Let's import it from path, and we will create one more folder called views. Okay, we're not gonna use public folder. We're just gonna use a views folder, and then this can create a file called pokemon.hbs. This will be our HTML template. By default, I have a small template already made for this that we can use. Right, just a small template. Just have a name and an image URL, and let's see this. To actually use it, we would need to go to our controller, and we can add this. So we can say render, and we can say Pokemon. So actually render this template. Let's try this out, and this should be the last piece of the puzzle, and this should get us Pokemon. Let's see. Okay, there's some errors here, probably because okay, not sure why that was there. Probably need to save the file or something. Okay, so Pokemon Pikachu, and let's see. And yes, I think we have a Pikachu, right? Really nice. So we have Pikachu, and similarly have Charmander. There you go, nice. And we can have a another Pokemon. Let's see another one. I think I have Charizard here as well, right? So, and Charizard. So nice. So we have a Pokemon service. So the last busy thing is we just need to actually have this domain in place, and for that we need to actually deploy this application somewhere, and then we can use the subdomain as would work, right? But our application itself is easy, so that is good. So our application itself good to go. So what we will do is we will just set this up on DigitalOcean real quick, and we just deploy quickly to a droplet, and we can see this live as a domain, as a subdomain says. Okay, so let's go to droplet. Let's create a droplet quickly. Okay, just you want the cheapest droplet list, right? I'm gonna use a password now, and let's see. You don't want to have all this. Let's say Pokemon service. Just create a droplet, and let's just create a droplet. Okay, why is this happening? I just want to add one more thing here, so maybe we can add it. So what's happening right now is that each time we are hitting this endpoint, this slug, right now it's querying the API of Pokemon, right? So it's doing that again and again, even though we are using the same term here. So we're using a slug here every time we hit the API. So ideally, what we can add as an enhancement is that we can store this the result that is given by the slug, and we can kind of use it as a cache. So we can have key value store where we would store the Pokemon for a particular key, and if we have the value for that key, then straight away send back the response, and we don't need to query the third-party API. So let's actually try to do that, and I've actually done it as a bonus, right? So I'm just gonna copy this here and just gonna paste it in my service. So I already have a cache interceptor in place. Um, so I'm gonna copy paste some code and I'll let you know quickly how this works. So right now an interceptor is very similar to a guard. The difference between an interceptor in Nest.js and a guard is an interceptor is some entity that doesn't just have access to your request. It can block your request or it can let it through like a guard, but it can also read the response that you send back to the client. So a guard can only know one thing, right? It can only stand in one direction, like from client to server. But an interceptor can stand in between when a request comes in and also when the response is sent back to client. So this is why we use an interceptor for this. And once the response is sent back, we want to capture the response before it's back in order to cache it. So this is what we are doing. This is some boilerplate that I've copied. Right? Under the hood, it uses observables, and this is boilerplate. I'll add to repository that you can see. So right now, I just have a small map in memory cache. Ideally, on production systems, you would probably want to have something like this that is persistent. This is something that use in memory cache, not so good. We want to have as stateless systems as possible, right? And if the cache has the slug, it will just return the slug. Otherwise, it will just do whatever it has to do, and it will take the response value and store it in the cache. And next time when the same request is made, it will just serve the cache. We can actually see an action. We can see like so Charizard, we're gonna hit the first time. So the first time is actually gonna query the API. As you can see, that there's time in the request, and the corresponding hits should actually be faster. This actually isn't working because I've yet to actually introduce this interceptor into the module. So to do that, I need to actually add the module. And the way we can add it, I think we have to add the controller and we have to use an interceptor, right? So we'll actually go to the controller and we will use this as an interceptor. So we'll use an annotation called use interceptors. Just import this. Cache interceptor is here, and there we go. Okay, let's see what's up. Something is happening. So cache interceptor is basically okay. We don't want to import from Nest.js. We want to import our own cache interceptor like this, right? This is good. Let's refresh and see. So let's see Charizard, and you can see so my subsequent requests are a lot faster because I'm serving the cache. So to Pikachu, it will take some time before it query the API, right? And the response is written, and then it doesn't query. So we have cache hits. It's kind of fine, right? So this is good, and our droplet is also kind of should have been powered by now. Let's check. Yes, it has powered on. So let's just gonna quickly SSH the droplet, right? And let's just quickly deploy this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add it to git. I'll actually add it all to git. Then we can use git deploy. We won't use GitHub Actions this time around. We're going to do it manually because we are kind of short on time, right? So just publish the branch to public repository Pokemon service. So let's publish, and the repository will be good. Now, okay, password direct. Let's log into our droplet, right? So I'm just going to do a git clone of the repository. I'm just going to go to my GitHub, and I should have the repository for this right here. Let's go here. Okay, my Pokemon service. Let's clone it. Okay, we're good, right? And Pokemon service is good. Now the thing that we have to install is Node.js. I don't we have Node, right? So let's install Node.js on Ubuntu, right? Uh, uh, should be fairly simple. I'm just going to let one instruction and shouldn't be too exactly, right? So we just have to do this, right? It's just an app. It's just a simple app. So dependency we have to get uh, from the Ubuntu DBM repository, And uh, okay, so which node version did we get? Okay, we got 10. We should have got 19, I think. Let's see if we can change the version. Mm, okay. Hmm. I don't want to follow so much. Let's just actually try with Node and maybe it works, right? So maybe it's gonna work. We don't really know. So let's do yarn. Okay, yarn is not there. We install yarn. npm yarn. Okay, npm is also installed. Oh wow, that's fine. Okay, so maybe there's another way clean to install this. Let's see. I think there's, but I kind of fast forwarded and used the official repository, not knowing that could have an older version, right? Okay, so a lot of errors are here. So I think I need to read my strategy of installing Node.js, right? So let's just do apt uninstall Node.js. I will not install it this. It's just not enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a source called n. I'm just going to use a node manager for this, right? And let's just see. Okay, should be good. Okay, node 16 is there, which is fine. Okay, node. Oh wow, it's still causing an issue. Previous installation is actually causing an issue here. So what we can do is we have to move this from the path, but it's fine. Uh, hmm, hmm. Okay, so I should have had this. I should have done this before. I should have gotten an instance of Ubuntu, right? But let me just quickly do this, and meanwhile we'll just take a breather of 5 minutes, and we'll back and deploy. So just me get this sorted, all right? And I'll get back after maybe a couple of minutes. Okay. Hey guys, I'm back, and sorry for that up, right? So I was just setting up few things and making sure everything was working. So as you could see, I'm on my um DigitalOcean draw, right? So the thing that we have to do is we have to build our application and then we can serve it. And meanwhile, what is happening? So actually I had spare domain that we use. So it's mustanse.xyz.com, right? And if I go to my DigitalOcean droplet, so those my IP address, right? And I go to my IP address here, I can verify that if it's running or not. So we'll just go start here on this server, and we can do it like this. And let's go back, and yes, so our application is working on our IP address, so we're sure of it. Now I just hooked up my domain, so with this, and to do this what we have to do is we have to add a new record. The instruction will be different for different domain registers. Google means this would be different, but the overall instruction would be the same. So we just have to add a DNS record of a type. So by default, we have to add as a value of star, so that basically the star means domain. So we can have subdomain called subdomain A, subdomain B, and we can point it to an IP address. So subdomain dot this domain actually go to this IP address. And by default, so right in this case, we would have a star that actually tells it that every subdomain should go to this IP address. So the root path should also go to this IP address. Let's see this in action. So here is a subdomain, and let's just check this. And if I go to this without my so the port is 3000, the is running on 3000, same one that we use local. And if we go to the root domain, say that the slug is missing, we'll have it in the query parameters or the subdomain. So let's add it at subdomain level. So we have Pikachu dot and then the domain, So let's write it down, and of course we have Pikachu. Right? Similarly for others, so we have Charmander, and I think the spelling is off. So we have a 404, but we can do some graceful rolling for this 404. But for now, so here it is. So this is basically how it's working. So it's taking the subdomain and it's working and getting the slug of the subdomain, and it's working and it's throwing back response. So we have Charmander. So we could have, I think there was Jigglypuff, one of the Pokemon. So let's see if it's here. So yes, Jigglypuff is here, and these are subdomain that's working now. So this is our subdomain service wherein we use the subdomain and our domain to be the service in a different way, so that we have a different page for each of these domains. So this kind of illustrates the point that we would want to have, as to have different pages for different subdomains. And this kind of wraps up. So the only thing we have to really learn is how to set up the records, that they can actually point to a server. So by default, we can have a host value of a star, of an asterisk, and that will basically tell it that whatever subdomain we have here, this will actually be forwarded to this server, and we get a request here, and it is served, right? And this is how it is served production. And this is all we need to do for now. And the application is live. Have to do anything else. We can change the port to 80, the standard port, and we would not need to have the port. But just show you, I have the port, and and the application is now working. So this is the final piece of the puzzle that was required, and now we have the Node.js ecosystem set up in this server as well. And I mean, this is all we have for now. And I hope this settles it, and I hope that you have had a really insightful time learning Nest.js and building up this domain service with me. So I thank you for your patience, and really sorry for that hiccup, and hope to see you again. And I'm just back on my camera, and hope to see you again, and looking to catch some time. Yeah. So bye bye. Thank you for joining in.